All right, so let's go over media queries. And so we can start kind of designing to be a little bit more responsive. So let me show my web page. Okay, so this is what I got. I have a sticky navigation bar that stays at the top once I start moving it. I have, what I want you guys to see is I have two columns, basically, of things that are floating. And if I go ahead and resize, it is somewhat responsive because I'm using a lot of vertical heights and widths and percentages. But when I start shrinking to a certain size, it's just starting to kind of look a little ridiculous. So my images, yep, they're scaling down. My paragraph that I have, it's way too small. And what I really need to do is I need to start redesigning so that it will look better on, say, a screen that's like a cell phone. So what I want, and I kind of set up to have it designed this way, if we're looking at my stuff, is that I broke up my stuff when I was using my columns by rows and columns, so that this is a column, this is a column, and this whole thing is row 1. This is a column, this is a column, this whole thing is row 2. So what I ultimately want to do is this picture will show up in the top, and this will be right below it, and then this picture will show up at the top, and this will be right below it. In my stuff, I have the pictures above the text. The beauty of using CSS is that I can create classes and things to swap them around. I don't have to have what I see first in my HTML to show up first. So even though this is my column left, this still comes second to this material. So what I actually want to do is I want to start using some media queries. And media queries is how we can change the functionality of our web page. Instead of having multiple web pages, I can have one web page that I can have dynamically designed using CSS to be responsive for the different screen sizes. So as you guys are testing your pages, you are going to want to start dragging in and seeing what it looks like. That's where we can use Dreamweaver, but even if you weren't using Dreamweaver and you were using Chrome, you could see what it's going to look like and how it's scaling. Okay, now I can get a different look though if I am using Safari or Chrome, depending on what is supported. So if you look, you see that the blacks are truer blacks than on Chrome, but it's still basically the same layout, and I could still do some resizing and seeing what it looks like. So it doesn't really matter what the color is. I still see that I need to change my design a little bit from a 2-column to a single column to make that so that scales correctly. So the way that we're going to do that, and I'll show it in Dreamweaver, but first of all, I want to point out this. Okay, so if we go into that W3 Schools, they got a lot of really good resources, but they do have a typical device breakpoint, and they have it broken up as 5. I usually have only traditionally done it as 3. I've done cell phone size, tablet size, and computer size. If you look, there are really no cell phones that are running less than 500 pixels that are going to be able to access a website out there right now. You're looking at being able to hit about 80%, 85% of all screens if your minimum design is at 500 pixels. And then you're going to want to go up to approximately about 700 pixels. So your cell phone, if you went from a minimum width of 500 pixels to a max width of, let's say, 700 pixels, you could hit just about every cell phone that's out there right now. There are cell phones that are coming out that are much larger, like the Note 9, the newer iPhone, But if you actually check the viewport of it, and I would do some research to see what you're trying to hit, that the viewport, you're still looking at actual pixels in your width. So this is where we need to start breaking down. So we could have set it up so it actually looks different based on if the cell phone is in portrait or in landscape mode. So if they're turning their cell phone, we can actually put those media queries in. Same with tablets. We can do portrait and landscape, and we can do for normal computers. So we can have one website, one CSS, or one website, one CSS to design all of our stuff. So let's use this kind of as a guide point, and then we're going to go into Dreamweaver and we're going to do this. So here, if you don't see it, you guys may have something up here that's your media queries, and currently you have nothing in there. Okay, so if I go into CSS Designer, I make sure I choose all my styles. What we have right now is these are basically our global design. So if we actually want to change the design for our stuff, then we need to add some media queries. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the plus, and I want to hit my media screen. I'm going to do minimum width, and I want 500 pixels. I'm going to do a max width, and I'm going to do, let's say, 700 pixels. Okay, this is what it's going to write in my code. Okay, so that size right there, let's look at CSS because that's where we're going to see it. It's going to throw it usually right at the end. Okay, and we're targeting the media screen with a mid width, a minimum width of 500 pixels and a maximum width of 700 pixels. So what we actually need to do there is we need to change. This is where cascading style sheets, when you're wanting to override something, you're doing it farther down on the bottom, and it will override any previous settings. So here is actually where we want to start going through some stuff. So if I'm looking at my stuff, I want my picture to be that size. This is really what I want to target. So let's see where we're at. I'm in the row. So if I look at my row, with each column, I am floating left and I'm floating right. And each one of them has a width of 50%. So what I want to do is I'm going to go in here and I want to, for my global, I'm going to select my global, find my left and my right, so whatever I wanted to change, and all I have to do is really duplicate into media query, and I can choose the media query that I want to duplicate it into. Okay, this is so that I can override those specific changes. So I'm going to copy that one in, and did I do both of those? Oops, I did two of the same. I don't need two lefts, but I do want a right, so I'm going to go back in there. The global, I'm going to go look for whatever I want to override, duplicate it into that media query. So if I look, I mean, I can hand jam this. It's not that big of a deal. But here, this is where I could say float, and I could change it to none, float, none, and then I want my width to be 100%, width to be 100%. I can go ahead and save this. Now, you're like, Mr. Walters, that didn't change at all. Well, yeah, because I'm not inside that screen width. But once I actually drag my bar to where I'm inside it, now I am on a single column. So I'm able to have that dynamic. Well, if I drag this out, it's back to the 2 column. So I can have multiple media queries for different sizes. I would, if I were you, only do 3. Do for, well, you really only need to do 2 because you could have your default as the desktop, and then anything that's within a cell phone size, you override what you need to override and then do tablet. You could also do landscape too, and actually with your CSS, it's going to look to see if that device is in portrait or landscape. So we can build it like this. One thing to note though when you're doing media queries is that you are not making any changes except for what you're overriding. So my left column, if I have any specific formatting, so let's look at it. My left right now, that's all I got, but it's still looking at the box sizing based off a border box, the column. If I pull that in, which I don't really need to, I think that that looks actually pretty decent. But let's say the Redbeard run, I want to actually center that. So let's click on that, see what that is. That's H2, and that would be in my section. So that would be section 1, section 2. That's what this is right here. Okay, I actually want to center that now. This H2 that is a subordinate to my section. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that over. And section 2, H2, I'm going to copy this over to my media query. All right, so now I got it copied over. All right, I want the sizing to be the same, the margin to be the same, the padding, that can be the same. What I do want to change though is text align, and I want to center it. Okay. So now when I go out, it's back to where it was. When I go in, it's centered. I could do the same thing for Redbeard Productions. That's H1 for my section 2. Let's go ahead and do that quickly. So section H1, duplicate into media query. There we go. There it is again. Okay. Oops, that one's this one. So, but that's in my media query. So I can change my background image if I wanted to make that actually go away. If I don't want to have the gradient on that size, I could change the background. I could do whatever I want. You're just overriding specifically what you want. So if I wanted this one to be centered, there we go. That's what it would look like. I might end up doing the background image for that and changing that. So then I could make sure that I have this selected, that I'm in my media query, and I say I want to change this. I could change that gradient. So maybe I want that to not actually be facing 90 degrees. Maybe I want that to be facing 180. Let's go ahead and change that. So only in that size will it look like that, and then it snaps back. So that's my H1. Let's make sure I locate that. Redbeard Productions. So I have that right here. This is in my header. Okay, so then I'm going to find in my header, I'm going to create that selector. I'm just going to do it specifically in my media query. Body header H1. And I wanted to center that one. Okay. And I could have it change and do whatever I want it to for the look for that size. So that's basically what you're doing. Go ahead and hit save. We want to save everything. Save. The media queries, that's how you're going to get it done. We can add as many media queries as we need. We're overriding only the stuff that we already have. It's not actually making any changes. So this text align center, it for all intents and purposes, it's not seen when you're not within that scale. So having anything, I mean, I could create classes and put them inside there, but you already have that design. Just stay with it. Double check your stuff. If that's when you want a design change, that's what you need to be looking for. So let's go ahead, and now that we saved everything, let's do a real-time preview with both of them so we can see what it's going to look like. Okay, so this is my normal size. If I shrink it down, still like that, I go ahead and shrink, snaps. Okay, so now I have something that's a little bit more designed for a mobile environment. It's more responsive. So we can have everything scaling down. My pictures are scaling. My paragraph size boxes are scaling based off of percentages. But once I get to that specific size that I need to have a design change, I can do that. Okay. So this here, I can actually size less than that 500 pixels. So I could maybe bring that down. Maybe I want to have it anything less than that. Let's look at it. Okay. So it will stay that way for the entire time. Let's go back. Let's check Safari this time. Okay, so we see my design. I shrink it down. It snaps to a different layout, and it's going to stay that way no matter how small I get it. That is good responsive design. That is what you're looking for. You do not want to design a website that looks like a desktop site, but you're accessing it on a cell phone or a tablet. That's not good thinking. That's not good design. All right, so go ahead and start making those changes, and then I will have some more videos for doing some animations and different things to help make your website look good. All right, have fun.